For you to be born today from 12 previous generations, you needed a total of 4,094 ancestors over the last 400 years. Think for a moment. How many struggles? How many battles? How many difficulties? How much sadness? How much happiness? How many love stories? How many expressions of hope for the future? Did your ancestors have to undergo for you to exist in this present moment? You are who your ancestors sang about in their ceremonies. You are their revolutionary prayer. You are their sacred gift to the world. Aho.
What is praying? Praying is looking to cast a spell. The Christian may not want to admit that because they're going to say, oh, that's of the demons and all that kind of stuff. No. When you pray, you're trying to cast a spell. When something goes wrong and you start praying, you're trying to say words outside of your vocal cords to an outside entity, but you're really speaking to the universe, and you're trying to get things to alchemically convert to your favor. It's a spell. You're trying to cast a spell. That's what praying is. But when you pray from a position of weakness, where you're begging, hoping, and wishing, and you're pushing out that low frequency energy into the universe, you're going to get more of that back. And so I pray from a position of power. And my position is thank you, unconditional love, and commanding. And that Lord's Prayer originally comes out of ancient Egypt. It was one of the incantations. It was a spell. Unfortunately, it was designed to give the power to the person that you were praying to, which in this case was Ptah or Enki. I think you guys know the prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread as we forgive our debts. Debtors as we forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Right? That's a very old prayer that's in the biblical text. I just had to pull it out of my file cabinet in my brain real quick. But that prayer is an incantation that's actually traces all the way back to ancient Kemet, and it's the prayer of Ptah, P-T-A-H. You're not praying to God, of the creator of the universe, when you say that prayer. You're praying to Enki. I want people to understand, I'm not an atheist. I believe in a creator of the universe, because the quantum physics proves that we're living inside of a creation. There's no way to dispute that. There's no way to doubt it. We're living in a programmed holographic light matrix. That is a method of use for this creation, but we are in this. It's created by an entity. I believe that there is a God. I just believe that the biblical version is not specifically talking about the creator of the universe. I believe those are the words of men about men that have manipulated it to be God. And actually, the word God in the Bible is mistranslated by accident on purpose. The original root word for that is gods with an S. And everywhere where you see God singular is actually supposed to have an S on the end. So there's so much going on. There's been tainted so much by man. But I do believe that there is a God. But again, you have to research everything that you believe in, especially if you're looking for this information to carry you into eternity. You should know every little tiny detail about it. You shouldn't just take it point and fact from somebody standing at a pulpit. You should be the expert on it yourself. The first thing is we have epigenetic memories. That's been proven now scientifically. I remember when Dr. Bruce Lipton talked about this over 20 years ago, the epigenetic memories being passed down from ancestral trauma, and his own peers laughed at him. They almost ostracized him from the community, from his own scientific community. Now, fast forward 20 plus years later, it's taught in universities. Wow. They've done all the scientific studies. They've discovered that in every single one of us, 15 to 20 years of generational trauma is being passed down. The memories, the actual memories are coming in through the RNA on the father's side into the next generation. Yeah. And so what's happening is you could be a person that's got what appears to be a great life. I'm doing good. I got my career. Everything's going phenomenal. I got a lot of opportunity. Why do I feel depressed? Why am I anxious? Why am I angry all the time? It might not be you. It could be your ancestors' trauma in your body. Wow. A lot of people don't understand this. Like, for example, why are a lot of African American people extremely angry and frustrated and depressed? Well, 15 to 20 generations hasn't even passed yet from what happened with slavery. I mean, it's just a fact.
Right.
The Bible talked about a mechanistic world. God took dirt
and blew into it the breath of life, and it came to life.
God said, the four-dimensional divergence of an antisymmetric second-rank tensor equals 0, and there was light. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the equation for life.
We're living inside of a matrix. Now, what is the matrix made of? It's made of light. How do we know this? Through the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. You smash particles together and atoms together. We know that they emit light. We know that at the deepest level, everything is made of light. And that because of the double slit experiment, when you're not looking at matter, it operates as a wave of light, a wave of potentials. Until you look at it, it collapses into self-solidity again, or digital matter. So they said, let's look deep into the heart of matter. And the deeper we look, the more we discover that you can see the whole in the smallest piece. So we know now that we are all immersed, fully immersed, inside of a matrix of light. There's people walking around out here that are soulless avatars simply operating on matrix programming. They're living, but they're not alive. And they're all around us. They're all over the place. People that have never woken up to who they truly actually are. They simply are operating on the code that they've been programmed and given since they were born, since they were even in the womb at gestation. The same code, just running on programming, never exceeding the programming, never reprogramming the programming, never editing it, never hacking themselves, just running on the pure code and living a complete lie, believing that they're alive, but they're not. Powerful stuff. I hope y'all pay attention here. I hope y'all, if you're able to wrap your mind around what I'm talking about tonight, if you can wrap your mind around this, let me see you in the chat. Let me see you guys in the chat. Let me make sure you guys are still paying attention. You guys ain't sleeping out there. This is deep stuff, man. This is some real deep stuff. This is our historical moment of our awakening and our call. So prepare for the return of the Jedi. Because we have been here for a very, very long time, my friends. A very long time. The Jedi are real. The Jedi, D-J-E-D-I. The Jedi of ancient Egypt, before it was called Egypt, the land of Chem. The Jedi were actually this private group of adept initiates that were on missions. I'll just read this. The return of the Jedi is synonymous with raising consciousness or raising awareness. Who were or are the Jedi? The Jedi were the stable ones, wisdom keepers of one mind and one spirit, who as initiates of the Osirian mysteries comprise the living terrestrial body of the archetypal celestial Osiris. Contemporary Jedi are self-selecting regenerators of cosmos. They are those who, regardless of race or creed, are awakening to a mission in service to the planet and the epochal imperatives of stability, continuity, and regeneration. The Jedi sense and know Osiris's arising as their own. As Osiris awakens from the sleep of the Aeon, the Jedi also rise to the occasion, moving into a resonant relationship as the reconstellated members of the collective Osiris. Therefore, as the mighty bones creak and the Ancient One stirs, this is our historical moment of our awakening and our call. So prepare for the return of the Jedi. Because we have been here for a very, very long time, my friends. A very long time.
Saber attacks. He was also incredibly powerful in telekinesis, with many legendary feats like sustaining a black hole with the Force during the Battle of Dantooine. Eventually, Luke became so powerful that he was able to enter a state between the cosmic force and the living force, achieving a state of both physical and spiritual oneness with the Force without dying. In this state, Luke appeared as a storm of raw force energy in the physical world. How do you guys feel about Legends Luke? Was he overpowered, or was his strength justified?
We were talking about what the real NASA is doing in our oceans. First of all, the NASA you know of doesn't exist. It's a lie. The real NASA is actually the National Anunnaki Subversion Agency. Let that sink in, because we're about to go deep. NASA have found Anunnaki artifacts and technology on Earth, and most of it is in the sea. NASA, under the guise of space exploration, is actually involved in uncovering and suppressing evidence of ancient astronaut contact between the Anunnaki and early human civilizations. Do you not think that it's weird that we supposedly know more about the surface of Mars and the Moon than our own oceans? Don't you think it's strange that only 5% of the sea has been explored, but they sent probes out to space? That's because it's all cap. They know exactly what's down there, and they don't want us sniffing around and realizing our true potential as humans. Let me make this clear. NASA never stopped exploring the oceans. The sudden halt in deep-sea missions was a strategic move to prevent these discoveries from becoming public. Y'all need to know that what they have discovered in our oceans is so monumental that it will shake humanity to its core. Oh, and who do you think runs and finances this organization? We got to talk about what the real NASA...
You don't think the moon landing is real?
No, I don't. No. Do you?
Yeah.
Why do you think the moon landing is real? Why don't you tell me why?
I saw it on television.
Oh, you're a genius. Awesome. I'm going to show you some CGI. I'm going to show you King Kong. I saw that on TV too. There's an 80-foot gorilla. He's running around kidnapping white chicks. You should check it out. 1972 was the last time a human being has been through the Van Allen radiation belt. 1972. That's the last time. There's been only 7 trips ever that human beings have ever gone past 400 miles. Every single space station mission, every space shuttle, every satellite, all of those are inside the protective Van Allen radiation belts, which start at 1,000 miles. They go from 1,000 miles to, depending on who you ask, if you ask NASA, 24,000 miles. If you ask James Van Allen, the guy who discovered it, it's 67,000 miles of intense radiation that's in a gigantic donut band that covers around the Earth. Now, even if you got outside of that band, you have to deal with solar cycles. There's the apex of a 20-year solar cycle was between 1969 and 1972. All the time when these guys were making those missions. Any one of those guys out there in those tiny little aluminum shielded crafts would have been killed instantly during any solar flare.
Why fake it?
Thank you, Kyle. Why not fake it?
You should open with that.
If you look at any of the footage online, it looks ridiculous. It looks stupid. If you look at the videos, it looks ridiculous and dumb. You know why? Because in 1969, nobody anticipated that we were going to have VCRs and the internet. We were going to be able to watch that. They wanted to win the Cold War. The Soviet Union's had over 10 firsts in space. First man in space, first woman in space, they had everything. First dog in space. They had first satellite. They were so much more advanced than the Americans were, but the Americans were more advanced in trickery, and that's what they did. They figured out a way to fake it. That's why when Neil Armstrong got back, first of all, he went insane. They went into a deep depression. So did Buzz Aldrin. He became a huge alcoholic. They gave no interviews. Neil Armstrong still to this day will not give interviews. He gave one speech that he gave at the 25th anniversary of the moon landing, and this is what he said in front of America's best honor students. He said, "We have here amongst us America's best and brightest." And the quote was, "You will achieve many great things if you could peel away one of truth's hidden layers." That's a speech this guy gives standing in front of the top honor students of the country. Not, "I went to the moon." He doesn't say that. He gives this cryptic speech. Now, Bill Clinton, in page 100, I think it's 156 of his book, My Life, he gives this story about how when he was a kid, he was working with this carpenter. And this carpenter said, "I don't believe man landed on the moon." It was 3 months after the moon landing. And he said, "I thought that guy was ridiculous." He said, "You know what? I don't believe anything those TV fellows show you." He said, "After 8 years in the White House, I thought maybe that guy was ahead of his time."
Wow.
This is in Bill Clinton's autobiography.
Wow.
This is in his book. There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way.
By the way,
It's impossible today. China wants to go back to the moon. They don't even have a clue how to do it. All of the hard data, the telemetry data, 14,000 reels is missing. No one can find it. What the telemetry data is, that's the binary data, the ones and the zeros that show the distance between the command module and the Earth during every step of the way on the way to the moon and back, which you can't fake. They don't have that. They can't find it, which you would think would be in a locked golden vault at the Smithsonian. But no, they can't find it. Well, they say, well, they placed laser reflectors on the moon. You could shoot a laser beam. That's proof. Well, it's not proof, because the Russians did it twice with unmanned probes. The Russians also collected space samples and samples of the moon, which is, you have to be a little crazy to look that deep into this theory, because it seems so solid. We went to the moon. It seems so solid until you look into it.
But here's the only thing. We can't keep anything quiet in this country.
It doesn't matter. No one's keeping it quiet.
Everybody
go look at it. This is a matter of life and death. These guys were in the middle of a huge Cold War between Russia, and they wanted to show that America had technological superiority. The race to the moon landing, all that stuff is not about going to the moon and collecting things. It's about military superiority. It's about the ability to do things with military technology. All that stuff they use for NASA, all the stuff they use for the stealth bomber, the space shuttle, all those missions, it's not for philanthropy missions. That's to fuel the military industrial complex. The machine behind this is all the military. And getting to the moon first is making a statement that we have military technological superiority over Russia. And that's what they did.
The United States government is offering you a piece of land of your own.
We have our own land.
No, it's not yours. It's the U.S. government's.
Did they buy it?
No.
Did they trade for it?
No, it's not like that.
Then how can they own it? He has a point.
We will give you everything you need.
We need nothing from you.
You can depend on your country to take care of you.
You are not my country.
Mr. Durant, if we could just to offer your people a better way of life.
Better than what?
Better than what you have.
I like what I have.
Because they don't teach you this in school. Can you imagine that 36,000 years ago, according to mainstream, we were like hunter-gatherers just trying to find scraps on the ground and scavenging to eat and group hunt mammoths and all this kind of crazy stuff and living out of caves and everything else. And at the same time that's all supposed to be going on, this is being written. This is being written. Right? So let me ask you this question based on bare bones logic. If you're living in a civilization where your main goal of the day is to survive and just find some type of food and shelter, do you have time to write these kind of works of art? Do you have time to understand quantum physics, quantum mechanics, theoretical physics, philosophy, frequencies and vibrations? Do you have time for that? So something ain't adding up. These are the actual tablets. These are the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. What you'll find is that the Bible is mostly this text right here. Dividing the waters from the Genesis is mostly here. Separating the waters from the waters, the creation of man in our image, all of that, really, in the creation of the earth, the solar system, it's all in these tablets right here. It's a real amazing story. Even the then preceding enslavement of mankind is also in these texts as well. And the reason for the enslavement is there as well. Now, if you're wondering how can you be sure that these texts are accurate, because Billy's up here talking, we don't even know if he knows what these texts say. Anybody can go to the CDLI online cuneiform digital library. It's hosted by UCLA. And you can actually translate the stone tablets for yourself. You can take a tablet off the virtual shelf and drop it into an online translator and read it for yourself and come up with your own conclusion. See, the Catholic Church went through something called the Inquisitions.
Yes.
It was the papal Inquisitions where they went around the planet and they killed and tortured and murdered 80 million people to convert them into Christianity. And
got it.
So it wasn't spread like they tell you in church. The gospel means the good news. It was really bad news when these people showed up. It would be like America showing up to your country and you have oil buried in the ground. The burning of the Library of Alexandria. This was one of the greatest knowledge heists in history. Knowledge was stolen and hoarded away, and most of it right now today is underneath the Vatican in the 5-mile underground Vatican archive, never to be seen by most people alive on the planet.
What do you think are contained in these books?
Flying devices. Forget the Wright brothers. That's not the first time we learned how to fly. There were flying devices deep antiquity. We had Vimanas, flying devices that flew silently. We've even found some of the flight plans and some of the flight manuals that exist in ancient texts. These were real flying devices. They were so big, they called them flying cities. Book of Enoch, powerful book. You know that Enoch was a real powerful man because he's talked about in the Bible, yet his book is not in the Bible. It was left out by accident on purpose. And the reason why is because he's talking about, and he calls these beings by their names, beings that were not from earth, that came here from up above and engaged mankind. They taught us how to build weapons. They taught us about perfume and makeup. They taught us how to make jewelry and beer and all this other crazy stuff, right? So these beings were physical, corporeal beings. And the force truly is this energetic grid that we're all sitting on right now. We're all part of this energetic grid and we're all connected. So the illusion of this separation here gives us a feeling of individuality. But in truthfulness, I'm up here talking to you guys, but I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to myself. And when you're talking to somebody, you're talking to yourself. There's only one consciousness. The only thing that's different here is that consciousness has literally separated itself into trillions and trillions of entities to experience itself subjectively from different perspectives because it wants to collect information. The force is...
Who's more evolved? We're considering ourselves to be more evolved. But you look at the simians, they have 48 chromosomes. We only have 46. Where did that change occur? Where did we get this new understanding? And how did we lose two chromosomes?
Chromosome number 2 in the human body was pulled out, fused together, and then 2 telomere caps were put on each end. This happened around 200,000 years ago. Now, something else happened around that same time. We have this gene in us, this worship gene, which was inserted into the human genome. We know this now because scientists have actually found the worship gene. You can turn it on and they can turn it actually off.
What?
Yes, we have a worship gene.
Worship gene.
That's right. And so it makes us want to worship something outside of ourselves, when in true reality, we should find the power inside. And this was inserted by the Anunnaki. That's my opinion. That's my hypothesis.
Whether you want to call it the Anunnaki or some other influence that acted upon us, but there's been a change within our DNA and our structure.